Cecil Taylor was an American jazz pianist and poet. He started playing jazz in the mid-50s. By 1959, he was diverging from mainstream jazz, doing more complex stuff and longer tracks and longer performances. He found it hard to get gigs at that point. He had the Cecil Taylor Unit, which existed from 1962 to 2006, which had a shifting group of sidesmen. In the late 60s, he started playing solo live quite a bit, but he also had the Field Trio in the late 80s, which was himself bass and drums. All the way through into the 2000s, he was recording less, but he kept gigging, particularly with the Cecil Taylor Ensemble and the Cecil Taylor Big Band. By the time he died in 2018, he'd released somewhere in the region of 96 albums. Hi, my name is Dan. So this album, there's a little bit of confusion about this. So Acclaim Music lists this as being live at Café Montmartre / Nefertiti, the Beautiful One Has Come. Between those two titles, that describes actually several different albums, and in general I have taken this to mean for Acclaim Music that they're covering, when they have several names, and when one of those names is an original and one of those names is an expanded version, that their intent is to be talking about the original. I don't really know if that's the intent. If anybody out there from Acclaim Music is watching this, please let me know in the comments. So I have taken this to mean the thing that I would listen to is live at Café Montmartre, which is 1963. So that was an album with 4 tracks. The first album that I could worked out that was called Nefertiti, the Beautiful One, was in 1965, which had 4 different tracks. I don't know if you can't work out if it added them or if it was the completely different. And then there were later versions of Nefertiti that added, put the two together, and there's yet more versions. It's all very complicated. The short answer to this is I listened to the 4 tracks that were listed as 1963 live at Café Montmartre. So this is a live album, fairly obviously from the name. It involves Cecil on piano, and there's a saxophonist and a drummer as well. Apparently there was going to be a bassist, but he was ill and couldn't make it. And this was recorded out in Copenhagen, and I think Cecil was living in Copenhagen at the time. There seemed to have been a thing around the early 60s where some of the jazz musicians kind of made a bit of a migration over to Europe for a while. So the Penguin Guide to Jazz Recordings says that this should be accounted amongst the greatest live recordings in jazz. I would describe this as being free jazz, and I'd say it's pretty free. As I listen to free jazz, I'm usually asking myself the question, can I discern any structure here at all? And it's pretty free. Most it's quite fast and frantic stuff. There's occasionally more slightly structured bits. There's even bits in here that sound like they're kind of based around a tune. But generally, it's very free of structure, constraints, a regular rhythm, of anything that looks like there might be bars to structure the music, of the idea of key, of any coordination between the players other than playing in the same kind of franticness or less at different times. I would also say that it's pretty free of accessibility, and it's fairly free of appeal for me. So I would definitely say it rejects convention. It's quite rebellious and subversive on that way. Jazz went really weird around this time, or certainly the extremes. I would... I can hear that there are bits in here that take some skill to play, and as I said, I think there are still some bits of structure, but I always start to wonder what the instructions that the band leader gives a band when they're playing this sort of stuff. What else? What I want to say, interesting, the piano has some out of tune notes. So a piano note can be out of tune with itself because other than the very low notes, they've got more than one string being played at the same time. And if those are out of tune, you get this kind of honky-tonk out of tune sound. Yeah, I wasn't a fan. When I read about it, I can see that this is regarded as being an important album for breaking out into more free and avant-garde type jazz. But as a listening experience, I felt like it was an endurance, really, rather than a pleasure. I did feel that potentially I would have more fun playing this than I would have listening to it. Not that I'm at this kind of level playing anything, but it feels like it could be fun to play and to do this sort of thing, but it possibly quite difficult as well. Anyway, I'm not a fan. Please tell me what you think, especially if you're a real kind of jazz aficionado and you'd like to say why this free jazz album is so pivotal and so much better than other free jazz albums, potentially. I'd love to hear from you. That's it from me for now.